Good evening and welcome to the regular scheduled board meeting on Tuesday, October 17th. We're calling the meeting to order at 5:30. If you can please call the roll.
Mrs. Arvanitis,
Here.
Mrs. Assif,
Here.
Mrs. Caforio,
Here.
Mr. Collins,
Here.
Dr. Henry,
Here.
Mrs. Hostler,
Here.
and Mrs. Troutman.
Here. 7 board members present, 0 absent. Can we have a motion to go into closed session?
I move that the Board of Education move into closed session for the purposes of appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. 5 ILCS 122C1. Collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. 5 ILCS 122C2. Discussions of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, whether for purposes of approval by the body of the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by Section 2.06, 5 ILCS 122C21.
I'll second. Motion made by Mrs. Troutman, second by Ms. Hostler. Can we please call the vote?
Mrs. Troutman,
Yes?
Mrs. Hostler,
Yes.
Mrs. Assif,
Yes.
Dr. Henry,
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
and Mrs. Arvanitis.
Yes, 7 ayes, 0 nays. The board will move into closed session. Welcome to the regular scheduled Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. The board has been in closed session for the items listed on the agenda since 5:30 PM. We have all 7 board members present. At this time, I ask that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, tonight we'll start our board meeting with our spotlights and recognition. First up, we have Edison Elementary School.
All right, thank you all. Thank you for inviting us to share a small piece of Edison with everyone. We're super excited to share with you guys tonight. Tonight's presentation is grounded in all 3 areas of our district's mission: to be educated, engaged, and empowered. Within educated, you're going to see that our student leadership opportunities help students gain critical communication skills by modeling social interactions and collaborating on ways that they themselves can actually support their school community. Within engaged, our students are able to affirm diverse perspectives and take an active role in shaping their school experience of their peers. And then, of course, with empowered, our students find purpose in what they're doing by using their unique strengths to support each other, to support others in their building. Students are also empowered to model empathy and kindness by partnering with their peers in shared experiences. So through these leadership opportunities that we're going to share with you tonight, it's our hope that students will understand their role within our broader Elmhurst community by demonstrating leadership through a genuine support of their peers. These students can then continue to use their voice to make an impact on our broader community outside of the walls of Edison.
In schools, but specifically for everyone's work life, personal life, or family life, relationships between people keep us going. They keep us coming back to that person because they make us feel good, because they make us feel wanted, and they make us feel confident. To help students learn at their best and to feel comfortable in their learning environment, teachers and staff members must create relationships with students. In Rita Pearson's TED Talk, "Every Child Needs a Champion," she states, "Kids don't learn from people they don't like." If kids are not comfortable, if they're not feeling wanted, if they're not feeling confident, they don't have a relationship with their teacher or their peers, they will not learn to their full potential. At Edison and throughout our district, we know the importance of relationships. Today, we intend to show you how Edison is promoting building relationships through student leadership opportunities. Some of these opportunities are kindergarten buddies, our 4th grade ambassadors, and our reading buddies.
Each fall, we pair a 5th grade student with a kindergarten student. We meet on a monthly basis to read books, do crafts, play math games, and even just take some fun photos. Our 5th graders show a great level of responsibility to our kindergarten students. They show our kindergarten students what it is like and what it means to be an Edison student. This is a necessary sense of excitement when our kindergartens see and wave at their 5th grader in the hallway. Our kindergartens also love to see their 5th grade buddies wearing the safety patrol belts, helping keep our school community safe.
So, how do you like it when your friend comes to walk with you?
It's awesome.
How do you like having leadership opportunities like this?
It's amazing. I really like it.
I feel very lucky that I get to do this.
Student ambassadors help our younger students with movement breaks by taking a walk around the building, and they are taught a routine to follow with their buddies. They are encouraged to be a positive role model and nurture the relationship with younger students. These students act as an example for their peers and can provide positive feedback to their young friends.
As student ambassador, and that it should only come to students who have a good responsibility, and are doing the right hate things for this school.
One of the greatest advantages for Edison students is having the multi-needs class in our building. This allows our students the advantage to understand and develop empathy, all while creating incredible bonds through reading and playing. You can see these connections throughout the building, in the hallways, classrooms, and playground. The 5th grade leadership and role modeling teaches the younger grades what it means to be an Edison student.
How does your relationship with your friends make you feel?
I like it. Excited.
Yeah, I like it.
I like it.
How does it make you feel being able to read with your buddy?
We like it.
Yeah. And how does leadership like this help make you feel?
Like proud and happy.
Do you like it when your buddy comes to read?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it make you feel happy?
Yes.
Yeah. What about you? How does leadership like this make you feel?
Well, it makes me feel good to be able to help and be with them, and it's really fun.
How does it make you feel when your friends are reading with you? Happy.
Having leadership opportunities, what does that mean for you?
It lets me like step up and like show my personality and help out kids. I really like it.
Good, because I like reading with little kids and helping them out.
For the 5th graders, how do leadership opportunities like this, the moments where you can really take a bigger role in your school, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel like happy and excited, like I was working with other kids, doing different things. It makes me feel like I'm setting a really good example for people younger than me so that they can see how it can help people and what you can do to help others.
It makes me feel really good, like to go home for bed and think, I did that today.
This is one of countless ways Edison empowers.
Right, thank you guys. So as you can see, we had lots and lots of students highlighted in that video, but we also have many students that weren't in that video that have opportunities to be leaders. And so we are so grateful for them. They are the rock stars of Edison. But most importantly, let's also thank our staff members who have built up these leadership skills with our students. And so we just want to take a minute to thank Erin Waddell, Peter Ritchie, Dottie, Julia, Sally, our social worker, Lauren Gee, Amy Anthony, our 4th grade teachers, Katie Hellwink, Maggie Pavlaka, Michelle Quinn, Jan Costello, and of course the rest of the staff at Edison that helps empower our students. So thank you all for letting us share a little bit of Edison with you today, and we hope you have a good night.
Thank you. What a special program and opportunities for kids that really touches all kids, right? And then creates this sense of personal individuality and confidence in all kids. So congratulations to you two. Thank you for running such a great program, and to your whole team who works with students in this capacity to develop their own characters.
Thanks so much. We would also like to recognize Tommy Scadam. He came out as one of our 5th grade students. He was in the video, prominently displayed, and he does a great job at our school. Wonderful student, wonderful family.
Way to go, Tommy. Thanks for coming out here.
Can we ask Tommy to come forward and the Edison team come on back, and let's just take a group picture. Okay? Come on up. Yeah, come on. Yeah.
We didn't.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to everybody who came out tonight. And I see it's McTeacher night, so a little plug. If you haven't had dinner, head over to McDonald's. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Okay, next we'll go on to Teacher Appreciation Week. I'm sorry, Principals Appreciation.
I was about to
My
say,
fault.
actually,
I'm talking to
it's
teachers.
Principal Appreciation
Sorry.
Week, and I'm going to ask Principal Pliskota, just oblige us by just staying in the room for just this really quick 4 minutes to just, we want to take the time. This is an opportunity where our state recognizes Principal Appreciation Week. And then on Friday, on the 20th, it's Principal Appreciation Day. And so we know that the work that happens across our school district could not happen without the fearless and the dedication and the commitment of our principal leaders. And so we had the opportunity to share with them and to celebrate them yesterday. And we wanted to take the opportunity to allow the Board of Education to also echo those sentiments of our appreciation for them. And we're going to start off with just a really, really brief video so that we can bring their faces. We appreciate Principal Pliskota for being in the room, but bringing the faces of our principal leaders in this space.
So for tonight, you'll also notice this is the video portion. So instead of the social media highlights, again, we moved it to the front, and this is our video highlight for the meeting.
And just a few words before you go, just to echo the sentiments. Sorry. Am I good? All right. From Dr. Campbell, we just want to thank you for your consistent and tireless commitment to the community and our children. Most don't see the breadth of a principal's work and the amount of constant switching of gears in your day-to-day work life. Yet all principals find a way to listen to each moment that presents itself in your office or in the hallways and show compassion and thoughtful care in every interaction. You lead teachers and motivate them to do their best work each day. You work with parents to ensure every student is learning in our schools. You collaborate with the district team to carry out the big picture vision of the district. And we work together to do what is right for every child. We are so thankful to have you in our district. The impact you have on every day adds up to many fond memories for our students and the community. Even after some of the hardest days in your profession, each of you comes to work the next day with a smile, ready to take on the next challenge and ready to celebrate the next win. Your work is inspiring and admirable, and we thank you for all you do. On behalf of the Board of Education, we'd like to wish each principal in our district a wonderful Principal Appreciation Week. Thank you so much for what you do. Thanks for staying.
Thank you, Principal Pliskota, for staying.
Okay, next on the agenda is public comments. Is anyone in the room wanting to address the board? We had no public comments once the board meeting started. Seeing none, we will skip section 5 of public comments and move right on to item number 6 on the board agenda, which is the approval of board meeting minutes. Item A is the approval of regular board meeting minutes from September 19th, 2023. Are there any changes to the minutes from last board meeting? Seeing no changes, the meeting minutes stand as presented. And item B is the approval of closed session minutes from September 19th, 2023. Those meeting minutes stand as presented. Item 7 is the reports to the board and presentations. And we will turn it over to Dr. Campbell for item A, which is the D205 Assessment System Fall Update.
Thank you. Tonight's presentation will be an overview of our assessment system. specifically highlighting 2 fall assessments. During this presentation, you are going to hear multiple voices amongst our administrative cabinet team members. And so therefore, myself, as well as Katie Lyons, Carrie Leischel, and well as Dr. Rubenstein will all share in this presentation. Today's presentation will focus on the framework of student success, specifically highlighting 2 assessments, one for student success and one for social emotional learning. More importantly, our team will highlight the specific ways that leaders, teams, and teachers are responding to the data and taking action. The framework for student success, which you can visibly see on the board, which is a beautiful graphic organizer, is within the student success. These are the strategies, these are the strategic plan objectives that we're focused on this year. We are focused on the alignment of our curricular resources, programs, and instructional practices to research, standards, and data. And we're also focused on our supporting of our individual students' academic and social emotional needs through varied programs and supports based on progress monitoring and assessments. In these areas, academic and social emotional learning, there should be strong assessments, instruction that's all aligned to rigorous grade level standards.
Okay. As Dr. Campbell highlighted, in a comprehensive assessment system, universal screeners, diagnostic screeners, progress monitoring probes, and curriculum embedded assessments are utilized to provide a holistic understanding of students' academic and social emotional needs. Universal screeners such as IAR, SAT, and NWEA MAP growth are administered to all students to support teachers in making instructional decisions as it relates to Tier 1 instruction, which is core instruction provided to all students. Additionally, universal screener data allows the district and school leadership teams to identify students who require intervention as well as enrichment in addition to the core instruction. This includes the identification of students who receive specialized supports by our reading, math, and EL specialists. Diagnostic screeners are administered to students who have demonstrated that they are still working towards proficiency with universal benchmarks. Diagnostic screeners provide valuable data that unpacks the discrete skills that students need support developing and allow educators to tailor instructional methods and programming to meet the needs of each student. An example of a diagnostic screener includes the NWEA Reading Fluency Assessment that the district rolled out last year and that is administered to students who perform below the 30th percentile on the universal screener of NWEA MAP growth. In addition to universal and diagnostic screeners, progress monitoring probes are administered to students who receive specialized supports. These probes provide district and school leaders with data to strengthen intervention and enrichment instructional practices and programming. And critically important are curriculum embedded assessments that align with the teaching and learning happening each day in our classrooms. These assessments are administered to all students as part of core instruction, aligned to what has been taught, and provides teachers with information of how to differentiate instruction to meet students' needs.
So as Dr. Campbell talked about earlier, there are two pieces of two assessments that we're going to talk about this evening. The first one is really focused on academic data, and that is our NWEA reading and math data. So on the next slide, you as you will recall, the board worked with our administrative team in the spring to onboard ECRA and their data management platform, ACRIS, which we're now using across the district. Using that ACRIS platform, we're able to do several things that we were not able to do in the past. So really in the past, we used to look at student growth from year to year or season to season. And so in the past board presentations, you might have seen how our student groups were performing last fall compared to this fall, or last spring compared to this fall, those sorts of things. And you'll notice that this board presentation is different, and that's because we are using our ECRA growth data and using it efficiently. ECRA really gives us personalized growth projections, which are based on student data from the last 6 assessments for every single student. So what we're really seeing here, the visual on the screen, you may have seen before from their spring presentation to us, but for each learner in our system, they have 6 assessments now. And so they have projected a personal pathway for every single student and projected out their growth for every single student in our district. And using that personalized projection, what they've actually done is that they have now compared their fall performance to where they projected them out to be, and then measured the distance between those two from where they projected them to be and where they actually are. And in most cases, what we're seeing is that our students are right on track with where we expected them to be. And so on the next couple of slides, for those of us who are visual learners, all the student scores are entered. Scores are compared with the expected growth, so what we would expect to see time after time. New metrics are given, so we would actually project out again for every single student, and then to each class and school and to the district, so we can actually map that out. And we get a percentage of students who are meeting the benchmark, percentage of students who are in the high expected or low growth range, and then we get a growth effect size. And at the bottom of the screen there, you'll see actually the growth effect size sort of boiled down into a color. And what we're really looking to see here are our students performing in the expected growth or in the higher than expected growth range. Those are the sort of targets that we're aiming for at all times. And something that I just want to point out to people is that you can still have slightly below 0 bit of growth for each year or each growth piece and still be within the expected growth range. And that is because of the fact that growth is not necessarily linear. If you think about a student's growth graphed on a page, you are going to see them sort of growing and going up and down. And that is what is actually happening with our students in that expected growth range. So on the next slide, what we want to point out to you here is that when instruction in our core curricular programs are working well and exceedingly well, we would expect to see around 80% or more of our students in that green or blue column, green and blue column. So making that expected or higher than expected growth. And when we see this, it allows our schools to look at exactly what they're doing and seeing where they need to continue to push and intervene. And it allows our schools to focus on providing targeted support to students within all of the growth bands. So really focus on exactly what they need to be doing there. It allows us to provide targeted interventions, enrichment for the students who need it, and to really, this is really how a school program should be working. So for those students in the green, we look to see how we can push them into the higher growth range and what we can do to improve their instruction over time and push more students into that high growth range. For the students in the blue range, we are looking to keep their instruction strong and rigorous so that we can keep their growth at really high levels. And for the students in the orange, what we're looking to do there is to intervene and support them so that their growth can accelerate as time goes on. But overall, what we see across all of our grade levels is really steady growth. Our students are meeting the targets, and that Tier 1, our core instruction, is working with around 80% or more of our students in that expected and high growth range. And so we're really able to do the things that we need to do in our core programs. On the next slide there, as we look at some of our demographic groups, similar things are happening. You heard a couple board meetings ago that we need to focus on our emergent bilinguals or our EL students. This is exactly what's demonstrated here in the demographic groups where we see some lower growth in our EL populations. As we get to the math program, you'll see actually that this is actually including some of the work that we need to do with our students with disabilities and our students on IEPs. So you'll see that in a couple of slides, but we continue to focus on supporting our emergent bilingual students to meet and exceed their growth targets.
So we began this conversation with just centering in this idea of growth, and we will talk about this a little bit more even at the committee of the whole in terms of even the state placing great emphasis on student growth. And our students, our schools, and our school leaders actually look at fall MAP assessments as a way, as we talked about, as a diagnostic screener to really then track their growth from that fall to spring. What we want to do, though, is also use, and because we're also familiar with this idea of like the achievement and the snapshot of a student achievement in time. And so what we provided for you on this particular graph is really looking at our local versus our national as it relates to reading and our MAP. So this is specifically about MAP achievement, which is different than the previous slides about growth. And what we just want to call out is that if you look at that green line, which is the line that's in the middle, that in D205, students in the 50th percentile locally perform as well or better than 69% of students nationally. If we also look in terms of our 75th percentile is equivalent, so if you look at the blue line that's above, our 75th percentile is equivalent to around a 90th percentile nationally. So what this says is even within our MAP data, this is not used as an achievement assessment, it's used as a diagnostic assessment to see how our students are progressing towards grade level standards. We just wanted to also kind of give the context as to what and how we can compare with this particular assessment as it relates to our students' performance from a national lens.
So as we continue our data journey here, and we're looking now at math data from the MAP assessment in the fall, you'll see again on slide 13 that our Tier 1 instruction is really working. It seems very similar, but when we dug into what we want to make an impression upon you is that as we dig into you're looking at the data from sort of the 50,000 foot range, from the full district range. When we dig down into the school range, and then even into the classroom range, and into the student range, the growth indicator colors change at the school level and at the classroom level and those sorts of things. So it's not as even growth all across the district, but across the district, as from a district perspective, our students, Tier 1 is working, and especially in math, and we are expecting to see and that is allowing us to provide the targeted support to students in all growth bands. And I hinted at this before on slide 14, but another area of focus for us is our students with disabilities, who around 20% of them were in the low growth range. And so we actually just provided our first professional learning opportunity targeted at our special education teachers in grades K through 8, targeting to make sure that everybody understood how to really give solid core instruction with math all throughout the year.
Again, with this data slide, we're also looking at the percentiles from a local versus a national, specifically in the content of math. So students, again, we're looking at that within our bottom, what would be considered the 25th percentile locally, which would be like the bottom quartile, would range with that student anywhere between the 37th and the 59th percentile from a national standpoint. Our students in the 50th percentile locally perform as well or better than 61%. And our students that are in the 75th percentile is equivalent to anywhere between the 82nd and the 94th percentile nationally. So again, this is just a snapshot of achievement from our students based on this fall MAP assessment.
As we think about the comprehensive assessment framework that Dr. Campbell kicked us off with, we want to make sure that when we're aligning classroom instruction and also standards-based instruction, that we include social emotional learning and want to highlight the data we have used to support that action. So in the 21-22 school year, D205 began administering the Panorama Ed survey 2 times a year to students in the fall and in the spring. The survey was developed by the Harvard Graduate School of Education as a valid and reliable tool to measure student perception of teaching and learning, and particularly around their perception about their social emotional competencies. So this data monitors students' development of their social emotional learning skills in alignment with the 5 CASEL competencies. As research illustrates, students' social emotional skills impact their overall academic proficiency. So as an overview to the administration in D205, teachers complete the survey for students in grades 1 and 2, and students in grades 3 through 12 complete the survey in identifying their strengths and areas for growth. So this slide highlights the different domains that the survey captures, including self-management, social awareness, grit, growth mindset, emotional regulation, and self-efficacy. The 3 domains that we focused on as a district and in schools last year were self-efficacy, or how much students believe they can succeed in achieving academic outcomes, growth mindset, which is students' perceptions of whether they have the potential to change those factors that are central to their performance in school, and self-management, how well students manage their emotions, thoughts, and behaviors in different situations. So students answer questions in each domain. So for example, a question that a student might answer in growth mindset is, in school, how likely are you able to change being talented? So the blue bar shows our fall data of this year, and you can see that it has increased from last fall, but we really use this as our baseline data for this school year, and teams are utilizing this to set their learning environment school improvement plan goals. Students will then again take the survey in the spring, and this is also directly aligned with students' 5 essentials. So schools frequently use this to check in on how students are doing in relation to the 5 essentials survey.
So today we have shared just some snapshots of data, but I really, really want to emphasize that the value of the data is how it continues to inform our practice and the work that we do every day. There's so much amazing work that is happening in our schools and across our districts that's taking place in our buildings by teams of teachers, by groups of teachers. And this is just a glimpse of the intentional work that's happening behind the data. So as we sit and come into this room and put up charts and look at numbers, there's intentional work that's being done to really unpack and actually make sure that that information has meaning to our practice as we interact with our students on a daily basis. Once again, what you will see is that we are aligning those specific actions to our 2 strategic objectives under student success. So in addition to making sure that we are really looking at our data, we're also making sure that our actions and our response is in line to our strategic priorities and our objectives district-wide.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about that first objective. So as it relates to the objective of aligning curricular resources, programs, and instructional practices to research standards and data, we wanted to highlight 2 examples tonight that illustrate how district and school teams are taking action on the fall academic and SEL data. One academic example is how the learning and teaching team partnered with school leaders and EL specialists to analyze data as it relates to English learner language proficiency. By closely analyzing access data, which is the diagnostic screener used to measure language proficiency, students were organized into specific English learner groupings, including entering, emerging, developing, expanding, and exiting English learners, as well as newcomers who are students who have moved into the United States within the last 2 years or have previously lived in the United States but have been out of the country for 1 or more years. Based on these categorizations, EL specialists identified their caseloads, determined the time and intensity of support needed for each student, and aligned instructional methods and programming based on the student's language proficiency data. As an SEL example, the Student Services team at York High School has disaggregated attendance data over time and identified specific students that require intervention and targeted supports. The York team continuously collaborates to identify the cause for the chronic absenteeism for each student and then works with the students and their families to create an action plan to increase academic and social engagement in school.
The other strategic plan objective that we are prioritizing this year is to support individual, student, academic, and social emotional needs through varied programs and supports based on progress monitoring and assessment data. So 2 examples to highlight under the academic column is that first bullet, where school leadership teams have created school-based goals in their school improvement plans that are aligned to the learning environment strategic plan priority, but also a goal around a prioritized student group based on their student data. So this could include English language learners or students with IEPs based on individual schools' data. These goals then have school-based action plans that engage not only specialists or case managers, but the entire school community to ensure that we are serving all students and we are all doing that together, and that we're focused on growth of every individual student. So one action component of a school-based plan would be what Katie just highlighted around strategic case loads, for example, for our English language learners. Another example of an SEL action that we've taken are our middle schools and elementary schools go through weekly data review meetings of their SWIS data to identify small groups and targeted student support. So again, really taking that individualized student approach. This could include, a social worker or a school psychologist running a small group, counselors checking in or checking out, and again, depending on what the student needs are. Last month, we approved the Power School Behavior module for our high school, and so they'll be able to create that similar cadence of reviewing data and responding to individual student needs as well.
This concludes our fall assessment system update. Thank you.
It was very formal, yes, thank you. Any comments or questions or comments from the board? I will say one thing, and because there's a lot of the tier word, there's like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and I think it's great to see that continued implementation of how we focus instruction, but more importantly, or how you all focus instruction, I'm sorry. More importantly, I think this tier 1 intervention, I think Dr. Rubenstein, you had mentioned that there was success around those interventions or that instruction working, right? And I just wanted to highlight that that really speaks to the professional development, teacher development that the district has been really putting a lot of time, energy, and resources into over the course of the last couple of years, and has been focusing on. And what it does is it actually indicates a successful PLC program. And I didn't want to move on from all of this without that acknowledgement of the impact that you all are having through your PLCs and in your work with staff and teachers to see how it's benefiting kids. So I just want to say thank you for that. I think it's a big win, and that we appreciate your work. It's a big undertaking in a large school district. Anything else from the board? Okay. We will move on to item B, which is the 2024-25 course proposals and program update.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight I am going to propose 2 course proposals for our middle school and high school, and then also a program update about our introduction to elementary music. So tonight we'll be highlighting opportunities for students to really explore purpose and career pathways, affirm diverse perspectives, and communicate effectively. So really highlighting across our mission of ensuring that we're providing students experience to be educated, engaged, and empowered. Do you want to pass me? Sure. Okay. I don't need Tanya to be my driver. So as a reminder, several years ago, the district created a consistent process for how we review and bring course proposals to the board. So tonight we are presenting course proposals for approval at next month's meeting, at the November meeting. So this will allow time, this timeline was created to make sure we have time to review any instructional materials that will be approved or proposed for approval at the February board meeting. And so making sure that we're creating that consistent timeline for us to engage in thorough review of instructional material process. This evening, we have 2 courses proposed for approval. The memo highlights several other courses that we are aligning and norming around name changes for our instructional and multi-needs classes at the high school, and then also a shift in a manufacturing course from a year-long to semester-long course to increase access to that entry-level course in our manufacturing career pathway. But the 2 courses for approval are on the table that you see on the slide. So Katie highlighted the growth of our dual language program last month, growing to 6th grade. And so our first proposal is, as dual language continues up to Churchville Middle School, we're proposing our Heritage Spanish course that will be offered to all 6th graders at each middle school. And so this course is designed for students who participated in dual language at Fisher Elementary, or students who speak Spanish at home and complete a comprehensive screening process to gauge their language proficiency and appropriate placement in the course. This course will then continue to 7th and 8th grade over the course of the next 3 years. And it was highlighted last year any FTE implications that were going to happen because of this course being added in our 3 middle schools. The second course you'll see is Algebra 2 Applications. This course is an instructional course at the high school that will provide students with IEPs an appropriate and accessible classroom environment for their 3rd or 4th year of math. We're proposing this because we've shifted instructional pre-algebra into the middle schools, and so our students who benefit from the instructional setting will be entering Algebra 2 apps this year. Because of that shift in the course sequence, we don't anticipate any staffing implications for this. And so now I'm going to transition to some updates around our elementary music program. I want to thank Dr. Baker and Mr. Pavlik and Mr. Vasquez, I think, also walked in to show support for this shift in programming. And they've really been instrumental in not only crafting the proposal, but also engaging our students. Did I get everyone? Oh, I know. I meant to say. They have been instrumental in making sure that we are engaging the community and also crafting the proposal as well. I know, am I swinging too far in the other direction? So just a little bit of background, but since the 2020 and 2021 school year, the instrumental program across all grades have really been monitoring progress and taking a closer look at the first and second year students in band and orchestra. So we've been closely monitoring their student learning, gathering feedback from students and families through surveys and focus groups, and then looking for ways to continuously improve a program that we know is highly successful. So as you may know, our students who are currently in 7th grade began music in the fall of 2021, and we had the unique opportunity to start cohorts of both 4th and 5th grade students as beginners in band and orchestra that year. So the teachers have monitored progress of these two groups of students over time, and so we observed that the cohort of 5th grade beginners who are currently in 7th grade are now performing at the same levels as previous cohorts of students who started in 4th grade. So this conclusion, taken alongside stakeholder feedback, revealed to us that an update to the elementary music experience could be needed. We'll also say that our teachers have really recognized that a second year of when students are starting an instrument and having that daily instruction, we've really been able to see some exponential growth. So through these surveys and focus groups, we've gained a lot of valuable insight. One example of a shift to the program that came out of this feedback loop was that our after-school rehearsals for 4th and 5th graders that were hosted at the middle schools were then shifted to before-school rehearsals at each elementary school to allow more students to access the programming. So through stakeholder engagement, we sent surveys to all current music families and asked for celebrations and then also opportunities through the program. So you can see one example again of the data that we received was that families and students are largely satisfied and felt successful. So the graph shows that 90% of our students are happy with the amount of the progress they've made, and 3/4 of them felt they made more progress than the previous year. So these results were similar whether it was students we were talking to or family members as well. So to dig deeper into these results, our music team hosted a series of 9 focus groups this fall at York, Bryan, Churchville, and Sandburg among students, and then also 3 parent focus groups, which included our music boosters, and then we invited all music parents and guardian groups to provide feedback on the proposed change. So we had over 80 participants through these focus groups, and while there were many, many celebrations, one opportunity that came out was an interest in having more time to explore instruments. And so, given this feedback, we're proposing a shift in the 4th grade instrumental music program to really emphasize instrumental exploration. So what this slide shows is the current structure and then the shift in the 4th grade instrument exploration opportunity. And so currently students are given the opportunity to select an instrument and start taking lessons at the beginning of their 4th grade school year. This process includes a demonstration assembly followed by instrument fittings where each student gets a few minutes to try out 2 instruments of their choosing. And so we sometimes see that students might not continue with the program because they aren't happy with the instrument they chose. And when reviewing retention data across each grade level, we do see the lowest percentage of students continuing in music from year to year, from 4th to 5th grade. And so in this new format, 4th grade students will experience an extended time over the course of the semester of instrument exploration, where they learn more about and have the opportunity to play all the instruments, learn about the instruments, and really make a more informed decision about what instrument is right for them. Students would also be encouraged to participate in the summer bridge opportunity that we'll be offering, and then they would begin those formalized lessons at the beginning of their 5th grade year. During their 5th grade year, prior to any elective selection that they're making for 6th grade, they have the opportunity to be provided technique courses, those ensemble before school rehearsals, and then also a performance to really get what the music experience is like, again, prior to deciding if they want to continue it in middle school. So when our team looked, you can see on this slide that most of our comparable districts currently start instruction of an instrument, right, in fifth grade. And so our current seventh graders have really demonstrated, again, that by having daily instruction during their second year, which that middle school schedule allows, our amazing band and orchestra teachers, they meet those same thresholds that their peers did who started in fourth grade, and also allowing them the opportunity to explore more instruments and determine what's right for them. So our next steps are, we plan for this to take effect in the 24 and 25 school year. So between now and then, our first priority is to create a stakeholder engagement plan beginning in January of 2024 for those current third graders, so they know what to expect in fourth grade. Our fabulous team of band and orchestra teachers will be finalizing and planning what that second semester fourth grade experience looks like. We already kind of have 3 modules built out, and we're brainstorming how parents can see their students trying out instruments and really having that experience as well. And then, of course, like we've started in previous years, we will continue to give that end of year survey so that we can continuously improve the program and get stakeholder feedback. And that's it.
Great, thank you, Carrie. Any comments, questions from the board?
I just want to thank you again. This is definitely a trend, and I think it's important to point out that consideration, including so many stakeholders in the decision process, because I know it's time consuming and work heavy. The workload to make that happen is considerable, but it does show that you respect the people in our community, the families and the students that are the ones that actually will be the recipients of these decisions in our schools. So I really appreciate the effort you put into making sure that everybody had a voice in how the changes will look moving forward.
Beth?
I just want to say that I love the idea of fourth graders having more time to explore all of the instruments, having a child who chose the trumpet wanting to play the saxophone and not realizing that didn't lead to the saxophone. And I've heard, just heard that before, that sometimes they just, they're excited, they're picking, it's a quick process, but I think this will really help them to understand all the instruments, what the music program will look like for them moving forward, and just be able to make a more informed decision about being a part of that program. So thanks for all your work on this. Appreciate it, everybody.
Kara?
Just building off what they say. I think one thing that is important is maybe just really having that fourth grade part in the second semester being robust. Just in thinking about our fifth graders, so they're starting their instrument officially in the fall, and they make decisions for sixth grade electives that winter. And so just ensuring that they have good experiences to prepare them, because they will have to decide if they're going to continue in middle school. And so instead of having 2 years to do that, they would have a little bit shorter time. I think they're going to be more, like Beth said, more solidified in their decision with the instrument. But just making sure that fourth grade experience is still pretty robust in those whatever modules you put in, or I don't know if the right terminology, in the bridge experience. So.
Absolutely. We definitely want to, when we're communicating out any shifts, we want to highlight that summer bridge opportunity as something that we're really, really encouraging, so we can get students, again, that access. I'll never forget seeing Mr. Pavlik walk down the hallways of York with fourth graders behind him, right, marching with their little instruments over the summer. And so we're excited to increase and have that line be much longer with students. Really excited, because those summer moments are especially powerful, I would say.
Very good. Anything else? Jim?
So can you tell me what goes on in fourth grade to help these kids select or make a better decision selecting an instrument? And then does this new program have any staffing implications?
Sure. So our first question about those fourth grades. So the current practice is students kind of get a demonstration assembly. They learn about all the instruments. They get to select 2, and they get to try them out for a couple minutes each. And so then they make the decision and their parents go through that rental process and they're able to select what instrument they're going to play. There are occasionally a student who might shift the instrument in middle school, right? But that's very rare. So really that instrument that they're picking in 4th grade, they're continuing. So again, we're still fleshing out what those, what this exploration would look like, but current talks about what it looks like are still having that demonstration assembly, right? So students get to see how the instruments are played, and then also, but then providing an opportunity where, okay, this session is just going to be focused on woodwinds. You're going to get to try all the different woodwinds. This is just focused on brass and percussion. You're going to get to try all of those and learn about those. This session will just be focused on string instruments. And so really giving them multiple sessions to explore and then determine a final recommendation. We also have talked about, again, you know, students, when they're making their decision, potentially having an evening where parents can come in and see, you know, students learn about their instrument and then decide what they want to play as well. And so really taking what was usually like a 15-minute opportunity for an individual student to explore and really building that out into, you know, over the course of a month, really digging into instruments as well.
In regards to your second question, Mr. Collins, we will, the administration team under the direction of our Assistant Superintendent of HR will be engaged in comprehensive staffing reviews coming through the late fall and early winter, and then we come back to the board and we will share what if any particular implications. But I think we first have to do a more broad review of our resources and our programming in its totality for next year before we can share that information. So I'm just asking for you to put a pause on that, and we will come back with that information after those comprehensive staffing reviews are completed.
Okay. We can move on to under item 7 and reports and presentations is the medical dental benefit contracts.
We have John McConnell here from Assured Partners to present the insurance renewal.
Okay, thank you, Chris, and thank you, board, for having me tonight. It was nice to see Insurance Committee member Principal Piscota get recognized tonight. I'm glad I got here early. That's the lighthearted portion of my agenda today, unfortunately. I thought I would take some time, walk through briefly kind of the 4-year history that I've been working with you all, and obviously get to why we're here tonight to talk about the renewal recommendation of 2024, what the Insurance Committee has been doing for the past year, and what we plan on doing moving forward. So the brief history, in fiscal year 2019-2020, when we were running $1,178 per employee per month and ran a slight surplus for that 12-month period, the committee recommended to the board for that coming January to increase only the PPO1 rates, which was our costliest plan, by about 6%. No benefit changes, no rate changes to the other 3 plans at the time. The following year, we ran pretty much right at budget at a 0.2% deficit, adjusted for medical inflation. The committee chose to increase rates for all plans by 3%, along with some minor benefit enhancements at no cost to the board or to the district. Benefit enhancements that would help the employees seek lower cost of care, get rewards, and help diabetics within our population. July 21 through June 22, we started seeing an uptick in claims. We ran a 12% deficit. So the committee recommended to the board for January of 23, noticing the claims increase through June of 22, to increase the rates 6.5% and voted to turn in some plan design changes on two of the plans, eliminating the HMOI because there was it was redundant with the HMO Blue Advantage. And then currently, what we saw, and I'll get into some of the due diligence, but we were seeing an uptick July, August, September of last year in claims, and then through June of 23, we're running a 26% deficit for the 12-month period, and the committee is recommending to the board a rate increase of 36.8%. So how did we get here? I was out here in March speaking with the Finance Committee, so this is somewhat of an update on that calendar that I shared with that committee. And there's a lot of other details that I didn't put in here, but we started, well, frankly, in October, November, the year before, but in January, we're reviewing cost drivers with the committee, working on enhancing the communication strategy for member cost savings. We got back together in March after I had completed both a PPO and HMO network analyses that showed both savings and potential disruption to our members, both with Blue Cross and the other markets. Similarly, we did an analysis for RX, potential savings opportunities, and what disruption would come with those if we looked to move the pharmacy benefit elsewhere. In April, we went through the initial marketing results delivered to the committee. So between the administrator of our medical RX plan, stop loss insurance, and dental. And then we also reviewed benchmarking, both national school districts in the area and other like size, 1,000 life employer groups. Our second meeting in April, we had Blue Cross in. We know they've been our long-term carrier. They've been a good partner over the years, but I wanted the committee to hear from Blue Cross, as we're interviewing other carriers to potentially either at least leverage Blue Cross or be under consideration, hear from Blue Cross why they are the right administrator for Elmhurst 205. What are they doing to help us curb these outlandish medical and RX costs, and what savings ideas do they have for our plan? We came back in May with negotiated marketing results and savings opportunities, and then those carrier interviews with both United Healthcare and Aetna. We had heard from the committee going back to this time last year that they no matter what the decision was from the committee or the voting membership, that they wanted more communication in terms of going into the employee vote. So I tried to capture here, after our last meeting in May, there was an email just informing the general population that we had spoken with and were evaluating potential new carriers. And we provided links for them to look up their own individual providers and prescriptions had, the vote gone that way potentially. When they came back in September, an email was sent to employees explaining the two options, which neither of those included moving carriers. The two options both retain Blue Cross Blue Shield, that the vote will be held at third week of September, and follow-up reminders were sent. September 5th, we notified them of informational sessions. There was a 4-minute video that my team created, and one of your own, Bill Barnwell, voiced over, which I thought went well, coming from a committee member, kind of explaining what the vote was between option 1 and option 2. Jessica Romero and I did in-person and virtual meetings with the various bargaining units that second week of September to further explain the differences, pros and cons of options 1 and 2. And then voting results at the end of September were revealed along with open enrollment dates. So what is driving the increase? And there may be more questions about this. You know, we are in a high inflationary period, and not just with medical and pharmacy claims, and not just Elmhurst 205. Blue Cross Blue Shield on their book of business, and they're not alone, had adjusted their trend factor in 2023, so increased inflation to the tune of 35%. Increased at 35%, not to 35%. We have seen in our at Assured Partners the average fully insured increase in the market at roughly 19%. We are obviously above that. I would say some of the cost drivers are an influx of large claimants. When I look at the hundreds of other self-funded clients we have in Assured Partners, we have twice as many large claimants. We had 41 members that accounted for about $4.5 million of our $18 million in claims. So it is not necessarily, I don't see abuse, meaning people running to the ER when it's maybe not necessary, filling, brand name prescriptions when the generic's available. It's not widespread, behaviors that are driving the cost. There are focused things between large claimants, the average cost of a high cost large claimant, other things that I'm pushing Blue Cross and their PBM Prime Therapeutics to look into, and within specialty meds on both of our PPO plans. Some of these are wonder drugs, but there are things, the Humiras of the world that can be written for 9 different disease states. And we spend almost $500,000 a year on Humira, and there's biosimilars hitting the market. I'm pushing them for solutions and potential savings opportunities on that. Anyways, I'm sorry, I'm going down a rabbit trail on this renewal overview. I'm passionate about this. We don't have the answers yet, but our work is far from done. We have a very challenging renewal. The insurance committee decided to bring the 2 options, both with Blue Cross, to the popular vote. And the voting was about 2/3 for the option 1 with no plan changes outside of, I should asterisk this, there's no plan changes that aren't mandated by the IRS. So the minimum deductible on the HSA plan has to go up from the $3,000, $6,000 that it is currently to $3,200, $6,400 in order to remain HSA compliant. Outside of that, and that's been communicated to the employees, there are no plan changes. So moving forward, right, we already met. I had our first meeting earlier this month for me to try to start building out the calendar of topics. The committee spent a lot of time with me over the last 8 months, kind of took some of the summer months off, but we still remain diligent through the summer. Our work is not done. I don't foresee more 36% increases, but because of the inflationary piece is not going away. So at worst we have to, or at best we have to fight against an inflationary piece that's 8 or 9% at this point. And that's before we have any claims. So we'll be reviewing potential solutions, everything, large levers and small levers. And I'm coming back in early November. My analytics team who I've already met with to be digging into some of the other cost drivers I've seen within behavioral health, both on the HMO and the PPO, specialty medications and potential solutions. And frankly, that's hopefully just scratching the surface. So the 2024 recommendation to the board is to approve the renewal of the Blue Cross Blue Shield medical and dental plans. There's no premium or plan changes to the dental plan. And outside of the IRS mandate on the HSA plan to increase that deductible to remain compliant, the rather large increase in premium with no plan changes to the medical plan. So, questions?
Anyone want to start? Kara?
Just on, I think it's slide 8. Could you go back to slide 8?
Yes.
Could you, and if you said this, I might have missed it, but the second bullet, could you speak a little bit to that? Is the average for Illinois is 19%, and we seem to be a lot higher.
Right.
Can you just speak to that a little bit?
Yes.
Or again, if you already did. Just
no, I'm happy
reiterate.
to.
Okay.
Yeah, right. That's the average. So that, I mean, I don't want to speak for Blue Cross, but that's basically their inflation plus what they've seen within their book of business is suggesting that on average, they feel they need a 19% increase. Our claims utilization on average has been worse than that. That's at a high level between the large claims on our, I mean, things like, I can tell you from Blue Cross, this is on the HMO, but just inpatient, it's inpatient and outpatient facility increases on a per employee per member basis of inpatient 32% increase year over year. This is our year over year, right? Outpatient facility 48%. Our total medical per employee per month on the HMO on the fee for service business is 35.4%. Pharmacy is not a driver on the HMO. It is more, the heavy inpatient admissions. So like our average length, average length of stay went up 66% on an inpatient basis for our HMO folks. That's being driven by, I said there were 41 members, both on all of our plans combined with claims over $50,000. 23 of those 41 members are on the HMO, which is about a third of our population. So that's skewing it. And the numbers I give you are on a net basis. So when we budget and everything, it's pulling out the large claims, but it is our reality when I'm shopping for stop loss insurance and the carriers are, not jumping at our business because of this dirge of, frankly, we have a higher percentage of very sick people, a higher percentage of cancer, frankly, and a couple birth complications and other things that I want to try to help bring to the committee ideas that we can help, people who are in chronic disease states that aren't yet on this large claimant page, right, to help them manage their health care better, potentially to keep more money in their pocket and keep them healthier so they don't become a shock claimant.
So what I hear you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there are some creative, I'll say, solutions that you're working on and maybe have presented already to the committee to help have some cost savings. Is that correct?
That's correct. I would also caution the board in that the creative solutions, they're more fun and rewarding and help people more. They aren't the usually multi-million-dollar levers that I can pull, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. changes are harder, frankly.
So
And
you're like
what-
smaller,
These are smaller solutions that add up, and over time, I think, are probably the right thing to do for our employees, right? It's trying to create win-wins, things that can help them save money, seek better care, and save the plan. Those things often don't, right? They don't mask, $3 to $5 million deficits, right? There's other bigger levers out there that are more painful to pull, and maybe we will not. Those aren't things that, they might never come to fruition, frankly.
Okay. So because, a 36% increase is unsustainable.
Correct.
And I heard you say that you anticipated next year wouldn't be 36%, but would still be.
Right, but it's not time for us to sit on our hands, I guess,
It would still be significant.
Well, that's hard to say. I guess the best way I can say it is if inflation has grown to 8 or 9% and you're projecting that forward, our bogey, is probably somewhere around 10%, just due to, $100 claim today is $110 claim tomorrow, right? That's what we're fighting against. And then it's give or take our own utilization. That's where it adjusts up or down from there. So I don't see another 36% on top of a 36, but I also don't see it plunging by 36%. So there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, our costs have risen significantly in the last 18 months.
Right. And it is, salary and benefits are the bulk of our costs, obviously, and our pot of money each year is pretty finite and definitely not going up by 36%.
Right.
And so, what we've previously allowed then for our salary and benefits, now if benefits are taking so much more of that salary and benefit, then that cuts into the salary that we can pay because we've got a finite amount of money, even with incremental increases over time. So I appreciate your work to really come up with a lot of ideas and things that you're researching to help bring down, to do two things. Support our employees to the best of our ability, and then also to help bring down costs for both employees and the district, understanding that rates going on like this, this feels just, it is unsustainable. So we have to make adjustments.
Understood.
So thank you.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
for answering my questions.
No, you're speaking my language, and that's, if Principal Piscotto was here, he's heard me say it, you're talking about, right, it's one big bucket of money, or I use the water balloon analogy, right? Like, everything that we're doing on the insurance committee is just a piece of the pie. Or if you squeeze the water balloon here and you buy a 36% rate increase, you have to think about, things that I'm not part of the decision-making process on, but things like salary, those aren't going up by 36%. That's important for recruitment, retention, right? Like there's a bigger picture to it. This is a big piece of the pie. And, when the committee makes decisions, they need to be thinking of all those things because these benefits are not going to be affordable for very much longer as they sit right now.
Just to piggyback, it's also, Kara, great point about, and I like your analogy of the water balloon, squeezing it and pushing it somewhere else.
Right.
But also then, at these rates, I want to highlight that idea because I agree with you of the unsustainability of this 36 point whatever percent increase, and how that could potentially not only impact salaries, but also our resources that are in place for our kids in student learning, curriculum and instruction, and opportunities for kids that we really thrive to, we work hard to create, right? A breadth and depth of opportunities for our kids. And while prioritizing the health of our staff. I do have a question
Yes.
around, because you gave us a little insight on, I think you called them shock cases, or
Yeah, large claimants,
large
shock claims.
claimants, and this idea that we're not even, I shouldn't say that, but this idea that maybe as a client, maybe a less attractive client because of the amount of claims that our unit has.
Oh, not for me.
Not for you.
No.
But for
For a
competitors.
stop, so I was speaking about the stop loss markets, yes. But so stop loss is like a reinsurance, which an employee doesn't know anything about. We buy that as a district to guard ourselves against so if we had, for instance, this last year, $7.5 million worth of large claims, we paid a premium and we got reimbursed $3 million for the amount over that level, right?
Okay.
That's my problem, is whether we're attractive or not. It's
Right.
my problem is to try to make sure I'm presenting the stop loss markets with compelling reasons why. I mean, they have the claims information, so, it is what it is, but, why we could be a good partner. I mean, you're not unique in that way. It's a challenging market to get competitive stop loss proposals right now because of specialty medications and things. It only takes one that's, there's $1 million Zolgensma and things like that, so.
So you also had mentioned, this is my real question around that kind of what we're looking at as far as the increases and what is being paid for. Is there any ability, and I think this is where Kira is going, and I know this is a very tough question for you to answer, but if we know that some medical healthcare needs are more long-term than short-term, right? Or some of the claims that were made were very short-term claims, but then others might be long-term. Is there a way that we could better assess kind of this future next 2 years of what we can anticipate as far as increases? Because we're seeing a swing of like 0 to 12% to 36%.
I'm trying to figure out how to answer, or if I understand the question correctly. We're trying to project forward. Is the question more around the potential increase year over year?
Yeah, at least in the short term.
In the short term, based on what we know about our population.
That's right.
So it is a good question. It is a tricky one. And without getting into, obviously you're not asking about individuals, but some of it is, if I drill down just to like the large claimants, right? That's a finite number of people. How much longer are they working here? Is their prognosis? Where are they at in their cancer treatment, right? All these things. I have all that information, yes. And we with our data analytics, like I didn't bring it with me, but we project for each one of those individuals what the projected cost is based on what treatment they've had, what we foresee for the next 12 months. And I use that when I'm negotiating with stop loss carriers. That's, when building funding rates, that's difficult to really have a huge effect on it unless we are sure like that some of these people, for instance, aren't going to be on the plan, or that, if there was like a massive, I hate to say it, downsizing or something, like our population is going to grow by 200 employees or shrink by 200 employees, that would adjust. But it's hard to say because, we could look at these 41 members or whatever and project on them, but we don't know. There's people walking around out there that could show up on this page in a month or a year, right? And that's why, like, I'm not trying to be callous. These people, they're getting the help they need for the most part, right? But it's more, a lot of my efforts are to try to not have the next wave get to that point. Helping them manage chronic conditions, what have you.
Yeah.
So I don't know how well that answered your question.
Yeah, no, I
but
know it's a tough question, and
it's
there
a
isn't a
moving-
computer that's going to give us an answer, right? There's a lot of intricacies in when we talk about healthcare, and there's so much variance. I think everyone's different and has their own personal set of
Right.
healthcare needs, and so it's hard to measure, is what I'm hearing you say, let alone forecast. So,
Yes. I mean, there's different ways I can do it, but when I build a budget, that's just a piece of the puzzle, as opposed to like the best way is to do it more actuarially when I project forward.
Mhm.
And I would say 98, 99 times out of 100, I'm within a couple percentage points. When I built the rates June of 22, I had never seen
didn't
like
see
just
this
like
coming, right?
the switch flipped and a 35% increase basically from July of 22 until as we sit here now. There's other, there's other school districts, there's other, I've heard of other reserves being burned down from 60 million to 20 million. I mean, I don't want to say we're at the higher end of the spectrum, but we're not the only ones that were facing tough renewal and tough long-term strategic potential decisions that we have to face.
Thank you. Anyone else? Courtney?
During that April meeting that you had with Blue Cross Blue Shield,
Mhm.
did they come back with any creative ideas or cost-saving measures? Did they bring anything to the table?
Not really. So I'll color that with a little, I'm glad you asked the question. So Blue Cross is unique in the marketplace. They're obviously the 800-pound gorilla, and I have many, many clients with them. They did give us a couple of ideas on the PPO and HSA plan. There are two big levers. So they brought some other ideas that would save like $50,000. I'll tell you, leading up to that meeting, I shared our claims reports with them, like my financial tracker. We have a 35% deficit, 26% deficit on this plan, 40% deficit. I said, we don't show up to this meeting with $50,000 solutions. I don't think you have a $3 million solution, but swing for the fences. So they had two big ones. One was off the table immediately with the committee, which was to move the PPO and the HSA to a select network. It's called a narrow network, which probably had, off the top of my head, 20% disruption, meaning 20% people would, have to find a new physician, say. The other one, which had almost as many savings, was the one that was option number 2, which was the Blue Choice options. On the HMO side, which is the frustrating part for me, is that there were no solutions brought. And the Blue Cross HMO, if you don't, is a capitated arrangement. So roughly a quarter of the activity gets captured under a capitation fee that we pay Blue Cross, like office visits and things like that. So under that model, I don't get the data from them, and they don't let us carve out pharmacy or stop loss or pull certain levers. But it has their Blue Cross. But their answer was that if we weren't under the capitated arrangement, that it would have been worse. I'm not so sure, but.
Well, yeah, I'll just reiterate what Athena and Kara pointed out. This is just not something we can do. I mean, I don't even think we could absorb a 20% next year.
Right.
I mean, because, and there has to be give somewhere. And if it's not on Blue Cross and if it's not on our, employee groups, I just don't know where it is, but there has to be give. And it makes me very anxious, I will say.
Yeah, Doctor.
You mentioned your goal was to prevent the next wave from happening or look to strategies on how to do that. Do you know what, or can you tell us about what strategies you had in mind or what that would look like?
I don't have them yet.
Okay.
But I mean, I would say so, right? I was mildly not giving Blue Cross their flowers just a minute ago, but that doesn't mean we have, outside of changing from Blue Cross, there are solutions, like targeted solutions that we can plug in, things that help, diabetics or mental health solutions or things like that we have vetted. I just met, it's not the first time, but I meet fairly regularly with my analytics team, and we go down rabbit holes to try to find what is driving and what. I don't want to put in, a smoking cessation program if there's 4 people who smoke in the whole district, right? Like, figure out what is driving. Mental health, I can tell you, is spiked considerably, and so a lot of these inpatient stays. Now, there's not a telephonic mental health solution that's going to help people that are that far down the road, but right, we all lived through this pandemic. There's this whiplash effect. Everyone, the stress and everything else that comes with it. Like, is that an area that we can bring the committee some solutions? I think so. I know so, and I will. It's not gonna be worth $3 million, I guess is what I'm saying, but it doesn't mean it's not worth doing. And there's other things too. There's a lot of fat in the pharmaceutical world industry. It's between the PBMs and the manufacturers, and none of it's lined up to help us. So that's where I'm going to spend a lot of my time.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you. And I'll just close with this idea that, it is unsustainable. And I want to acknowledge for both parties, right? The employees, these are significant increases, and then also for the district. And I'm hoping that the work of the committee moving forward brings every idea and every opportunity, and that we're open-minded and welcoming to things that might look a little different, to offer some reprieve to both the district as well as the employees. Thank you so much for your work. This is a tough one. We appreciate all your time and energy.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, deep breath. On to the consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to pull from consent, item 8 on the agenda? If not, can I have a motion for the consent agenda, please?
I move that the Board of Education approve the following consent agenda items: A, personnel report; B, financial report; C, Assistance League Chicagoland West ALCW; D, second read policy section 2 BOE 280-170; E, second read policy section 4 operational services 445-4100; F, second read policy section 5 personnel 5230; G, second read policy section 6 instruction 610, 6190, 6240; H, second read policy section 7 students 7305, 7330; and I, second read policy section 8 community relations 825, 895.
I'll second. Thank you. Motion by Mrs. Troutman, second by Ms. Hassler. Please call the vote.
Mrs. Troutman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hassler?
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio?
Yes.
Dr. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
And Mrs. Assif?
Yes.
And Mrs. Arvanitis?
Yes, 7 ayes, 0 nays, motion passes. On to item 9 on the agenda is the action items, and just wanted to give a little preview of why this second read policy section 4 operational services 4.20 is on action and not like consent. As you remember, last month, we had this under action items also. This policy review has been under significant consideration by the board for over 1 year, with many board discussions over the course of that year. This policy identifies the metric the board has been using in recent years to measure our financial health and to make important financial decisions for the district and our community. Fund balance best practice in school finance is to maintain an adequate amount of cash to cover our future expenses. And this policy, as written, outlines what the board believes to be the adequate amount of cash and savings necessary to operate a large district. When looking at other districts who use a similar metric to ours, we see 20 to 30% of operating budget being allocated as adequate funding. And what is being proposed in this policy tonight is a range that is much more conservative when compared to those districts. If the policy is approved tonight, as written, the board will embark on a more sophisticated approach to decision-making when it comes to financial decisions like the tax levy and abatement, or increasing and decreasing district expenses. Most importantly, the policy will set the adequate amount for the board, the adequate amount the board feels is necessary to provide a high-quality education for all of our students. Mr. Welton, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
This fund balance policy, we specifically target our low cash flow point, May 31st. We focused on the operating funds and a ratio of operating fund balances to annual operating expenses. And so the board seeks to maintain that ratio of no less than 15 to 20%.
Can we have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education, stand by, approve the second read, Policy Section 4, Operational Services 420.
I'll second.
Motion by Mrs. Troutman, second by Dr. Henry. Are there any comments from the board? Jim?
I just want to reiterate why I'm going to vote no again. Operating fund subtotal for this year's budget is $172,031,185. Our previous policy stipulated the minimum amount of money needed in the bank on the first day of our fiscal year, July 1st, to ensure the district did not have to borrow money to operate our schools and pay our bills. We changed our accounting system, and therefore we need to change the language of this policy to make sense within the context of that new accounting system. Mr. Welton originally proposed a policy that seeks to maintain a cash balance of 10 to 15% of the year's operating budget on the low cash balance day of the year, May 31st. This was based on Naperville's policy. Naperville uses the same accounting system that we adopted a few years ago. As long as the balance of our operating fund accounts on May 31st is above $1, the district will not have to borrow money to pay its bills in that fiscal year. In my opinion, we need more than $1 in the bank on our low balance day of the year. The question is, how much more? The answer to that question should be based on an analysis of the volatility of the district's revenue sources and an analysis of possible unexpected or uninsured expenses. I listened to the policy committee meeting where the policy was discussed. I heard nothing about an analysis of the volatility of the district's revenue sources, nor a discussion about uninsured or analysis of possible unexpected expenses. I did hear a lot about board members' feelings about how big they would like this cash pile to be. The new policy, edited by the policy committee, now states that instead of the 10 to 15% that Mr. Welton proposed, the district strive to maintain a balance of 15 to 20% of a year's operating expenses on May 31st, the low cash balance day of the year. That translates to somewhere between $20 and $34 million. I'll point out that the new Lincoln School costs $31 million to build, so we have a cost of a new elementary school in cash on our books on our low cash point of the year under this new policy. So here are my fears. It's easy to spend other people's money. As the district strives to maintain 15 to 20% of a year's operating budget on the low cash balance day of the year, it is likely this will be used as a reason the administration recommends the board levy the maximum tax increase allowed by law each year. I think the board is going to find that it is more difficult to balance our budget in these high inflationary times than it was in the past decade of low inflationary times. I know that tens of millions of dollars sitting in the bank doesn't improve the quality of education in Elmhurst. In my opinion, this policy takes too much money from our taxpayer, and I know that Elmhurst deserves better.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, can we please call the vote?
Mrs. Troutman?
Yes.
Dr. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Assif?
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
No.
Mrs. Hassler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Arvanitis?
Yes, 6 ayes, 1 nay, motion passes. Moving on to item B, the approval for the medical and dental benefits contract. Is that Mr. Welton?
John just presented his report. It's a 36.8% increase on the medical and no increase on the dental.
Okay, can we have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the renewal of Blue Cross Blue Shield health and dental insurance plans for the January 1st to December 31st, 2024 year as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Caforio, second by Ms. Hassler. Are there any comments from the board? Jim?
The board agreed to this process through our contractual negotiations with our employees. I'll vote yes on this because stand up to what I agreed to. However, as many board members tonight have pointed out, this is unsustainable. And our process of determining our health benefits is also unsustainable and needs to change. And I will support efforts to do that.
Thanks. Anybody else? Okay, if we can call the vote.
Mrs. Caforio?
Yes.
Mrs. Hassler?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mrs. Assif?
Yes.
Mrs. Troutman?
Yes.
Dr. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Arvanitis?
Yes, 7 ayes, 0 nays, motion passes. Superintendent's Communications, Dr. Campbell, the options fair leaders. Did you find it? You got it?
You see, I was getting a little nervous there, like, where are my notes? So, on last Wednesday, October 11th, District 205 was the proud host of the Options Fair. The Options Fair is an opportunity for students with disabilities established to offer those students and those families opportunities to meet with colleges, universities, college experience programs, trade schools, and agencies that can provide services after high school. Close to 1,000 people from high schools in DuPage and West Cook were able to visit York High School, hear presentations focused on accommodations at university programs and guardianship planning while meeting with representatives from over 80 agencies. The event was spearheaded by members of our Bridges Transition team. And so as we saw, just really briefly, pictures that was scrolling on the screen, we want to take the opportunity to acknowledge the hard work of our team members in order to host such event. Tyler King, Dr. Skip Coombe, Molly Marcourt, Christy Stone, Tim Welton, Stephen Westendorf, and Amanda Wilmer. Every member of the team received incredible feedback from our families, and we are looking forward to attending the next event at Glenbard West in 2024. Could we please just take a moment and give a round of applause for those team members?
I can just add on to that. It is a tremendous amount of work, and I'm looking at Dr. Rubenstein because I'm imagining that this is falling under his realm. But not only is this benefiting our own students, but the children throughout DuPage County. To be able to host an event like this, find 80 schools who are looking to connect with this specific market and provide, information that's available is just a huge undertaking, and does not happen overnight or easily. It really does take a village. Congratulations on a wonderful event. I know the county and the district appreciate it.
Our team did a really fantastic job. So we're thankful to be able to host, and even more thankful to be able to attend next year at Glenbard West. So, yes.
Yes.
So I just also wanted to say thanks for doing the event, because I think, when, for families that have a child that maybe doesn't walk the typical path, being able to go to their home high school and see options is huge. And that has never happened here before. And the event was rarely even shared with families. So to help families know and experience that from you think if you have a middle schooler, you could have gone and start seeing that already to start preparing for what's after high school. And I think that is very, very powerful. And so I really appreciate the work.
I appreciate that powerful feedback, and that is really a testament to, I think, our transition planning team that is really working to make sure that transition planning occurs early enough in a student's career. It's supposed to happen well before high school. And really when a student turns 14 and a half by law, they are supposed to have a full transition plan in place to really plot out what is going to happen in their post-secondary world. And so I really appreciate you pointing that out, because it can be really overwhelming. And you might need to go to this event several times in order to get the information that you need and in order to plot out the path to your future. So,
Great work. Thank you. Let's move on to C, the state of the district. Dr. Campbell.
That's okay. We're going to jump
Sorry, you
up
wanna
one
go
to fall housing enrollment
Thanks.
update.
Yeah, sorry.
And my colleague, Mr. Welton, is just going to share just a few brief highlights.
All right, tonight I will be providing a brief enrollment update as of September 30th. We use September 30th because the Illinois State Board of Education requires each school district to do a fall housing report as of September 30th each year. This is the basis for reviewing the district's current September 30th enrollment compared with the prior year fall housing report. I also included the enrollment projections for the current 23-24 year just for reference that were performed by professional demographer Cropper in January of 22 and the internal projections performed 1 year ago. Overall enrollment is very stable with a small increase this year by 37 students to 8,329, which is a 0.45% increase. In a district with neighborhood schools and fixed boundaries, there will be fluctuations at the individual schools and grade levels each year. The K-5 elementary enrollment increased for the second consecutive year, increasing by 77 students to 3,560. This is a 2.25% increase. This is the highest overall elementary K-5 enrollment over the last 9 years, which was fueled by the lower grade levels, kindergarten, first and second grade. Second grade is the largest grade level at 638. At the elementary level, Hawthorne has the most students at 572, followed by Conrad Fisher with 538. The 6 through 8 middle school enrollment is very stable with a tiny decrease of 1 student to 1,803. The middle school enrollment includes Bryan at 692, Churchville at 489, and Sandburg at 622. York enrollment decreased by 30 students to 2,670, a 1.09% decrease. Overall, District 205 started the 9-year period in 2015-16 with 8,326 students, and that is compared to the current 2023-24 school year with 8,329, an increase of 3 students over that period, which illustrates a very stable and manageable period of enrollment. The next steps, internal enrollment projections for the 24-25 year will be performed over the next month, and these projections will be utilized for the comprehensive staffing review process.
Thanks, Chris. Now we can move to the next one, which is C, State of the District.
So I'm really, really excited to share with you that we are officially bringing back the State of the District event this year. We invite the community to join us on November 1st at 7 p.m. in the York High School Commons. Of course, our communications department will have a very thorough campaign of posts about this event across our social media platform in the coming week. But we really look forward to the opportunity to invite our community to come together and to celebrate the many achievements of our students and our staff. We will take a look at data that will soon be released from the state and share how we will continue to tailor our work and focus to ensure that we are aligned to maximize student growth for each student as they move through their journey of excellence experience here in District 205.
Great, looking forward to that event. Thank you. And item D, FOIA requests.
One FOIA request for English learner and bilingual information, granted. One FOIA request for non-certified salary report, granted. One FOIA request for number of certified school librarians, granted. One FOIA request for radon testing from 2018, not in possession. One FOIA request for elementary literacy curriculum, granted. One FOIA request for staff grievance information, denied.
Thank you. And finally is item 11, board communications. Any reports or sharing of information from the board? Nope. Seeing none, we have upcoming meetings. We have a committee of the whole meeting scheduled for October 25th. Looking forward to seeing the assessment data of our schools at 5:30 p.m. on October 25th, a Finance and Operation Committee meeting on November 8th at 5:30 p.m., a regular scheduled Board of Education meeting taking place on November 14th at 7 p.m., and a Policy Committee meeting scheduled for December 5th at 5:30 p.m. All these meetings will be held here at District 205 Center in room 215 and 216. And with that, it is 8:53 and we are adjourned.